Welcome. I'm your host, Janelle, and this is Allured by God for Good. And this is season 2 of our podcast, and actually it's a companion season to the Bible plan, which is called From Discipline to Delight. So we're in week 2. If you just got this book, go back to the intro. There's one podcast that's before this, and it'll help kind of set you up to get started and give you hopefully some helpful hints and some encouragement as you get started on this journey, because it's, pretty long. 119 days through the Bible is a pretty great challenge, and I'm glad that you're on it. So let's jump into week 1. This is just going to be a few minutes that we're going to go over some high-level things about what you're going to be reading. But week 1 is how can I trust God in the waiting? Waiting is the theme. It's the theme of Genesis and Job. And you may be thinking, why we even throw Job in here? Job was more than likely written in these nomadic days. That's what that time period is called, of where Genesis and then we move into Exodus is. And so Job is most likely written. Many scholars believe that is where the dating of that should go. So that's where we're going to read it. But there is lots of waiting. And so I just want to talk about God's voice in both of these books. Lots of stories that you're probably really familiar with in these books, whether it's the Tower of Babel, whether it's the flood. Genesis is just full of the foundation and the history of God's people. And so 2 people, though, that I want to highlight. One is Joseph. Joseph has my heart every single time. His character is amazing to me because sometimes people are like, God, he seems a little arrogant talking about his dreams. And you're going to get to that if you haven't read it. But I think whether he is arrogant or not, I don't know. What astounds me every time is his trust in the Lord in wherever he is. And many times he is elevated and he is, the highest official in the country of Egypt, or he's in prison, or he's in a pit and about to be sold by his brothers, or he's being accused of something he didn't do, or he then is put in charge again over the famine that's happening throughout the region. No matter what, this man consistently trusts God that he has been placed there for a purpose, and he is obedient. That's amazing to me. So his story is just full of obedience in the waiting, while he's waiting. Again, whether in prison, whether in a pit, whether in a palace. And then we're also going to talk quickly about Job. And Job is one of those books that people are like, oh, I love Job, or I hate Job. Oh my gosh, so much suffering. And then his friends and all this complaining, and they're telling him that God did this because of some sin in his life and that he deserved this. And then at the end, God and Job have a conversation. Well, really, that's not true. God talks to Job. Job is basically left speechless at the end of it. But some points I want to make in this week 1 of waiting. 1, distraction can lead to death. Joseph had a choice. Joseph's choice was that he trusted God even though God did not rescue him immediately. So if you look at the timeline of Joseph, which is crazy, I think there's like 13 years that go by. I have it written in here somewhere. And so he's in prison. All these years go by, and he is patient with God in all of that. And so Joseph could have easily been distracted, and his distraction could have led to death, and it didn't. And then we look at Job, and the point of Job is destruction could have led to death. Not maybe his death, but the death of his soul. So that's what we're talking about here. Distraction could lead to death. Destruction can lead to death. So Job could have gone inward. He lost his children. He lost everything he owned. And then he got severely sick. He could have been like, peace out. There's no way that God is faithful. And yet Job had the choice when all things seemed lost to turn from God, and he didn't. It actually says in Job 2:10, in all of this, Job did not sin. So even though he's lamenting and he's weeping and crying, he did not sin. And even in Joseph's story, in thinking about him dying to himself, it says in Genesis 41:16, Joseph is telling this actually to Pharaoh in talking about dreams. Joseph says, it is not in me that you're going to know the interpretation of this, but God will give you the interpretation of this. So Joseph, in his story, could have easily been distracted. Job could have easily been led into this emotional pit because of the destruction that was happening. But what happened is the death of self in Joseph's case and the death of sin in Job's case led to deliverance, and it also led to dependence. Both of those things led to deliverance and to dependence on God. So, a couple of tips for this week. Read these stories with your imagination. Okay? I don't think we're told that a lot of times. But I encourage you to invite all of your senses into the text. Invite them all. When I read the story of Joseph, oh my gosh, I imagine, especially at the end, Joseph is now one of the highest leaders right under Pharaoh. He's over all of the food during the famine. His brothers come. They don't recognize him. They come. They're wanting to buy food, and he recognizes them. And I have chills thinking about it every time. Because what happens is Joseph recognizes his brothers, and he has to go around the corner and weep because he has seen them for the first time in years. Instead of being ticked off that these brothers sold him into slavery, instead of having that posture, he goes around the corner and weeps. And I always put myself in the story. I put myself there, and I imagine being in this palace and imagine watching Joseph, who they don't recognize. So he must really look like an Egyptian at this point. And he is so moved with love and compassion and grace and forgiveness that he weeps that he's seen his brothers for the first time. So use your imagination. Put yourself in the story, because it's going to help you remember the story and then grasp the context a little bit more too. Tip 2 is to think about the genealogy and the thread of the tribe of Judah. And I want to land here for a minute, and I want to read this verse to you. Let's see where it is. We are in Genesis 43. Oh, y'all, I love it so much. Imagine the scene. Brothers have gone to see Joseph. We just have a few minutes left because I don't want to take up too much of your time. Brothers have come to buy food from Joseph. And Joseph says, bring your younger brother, which is his brother Benjamin. They didn't bring him to begin with. Go back to your father, bring Benjamin, and then I'll give you food or give you more. And so what happens is when they go back, the father, who is Israel, he says, or Jacob, he says, well, I can't send Benjamin back with you. This is the baby. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. The older son all the sons are like, yes, we have to go. He has to come back with us. And the older son says, hey, so if I don't come back, I'll take Benjamin. If I don't come back, you can have my 2 sons. But here's what happens with Judah. Judah is the 4th son of Jacob. And Judah says to his father, send the boy with me, and we will go, and that we may live and not die, both we, you, and our children. And Judah says this to Jacob, I myself will be surety for him. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, let me bear the blame forever. Here's what this means. Judah is the tribe that Jesus came from. Judah is saying, I'm going to be the surety. I'm going to be the certainty. I'm going to be the payment. I'm going to be the redemption if I don't bring him back. So you have my word. You have my pledge that that's going to happen from me. This doesn't happen anywhere else with any of these other brothers. Judah says it. And it is this foreshadowing of Jesus. I love that so much. The other cool thing that happens at the end of Genesis, don't miss this, is the blessing that Jacob gives all of his sons. In Genesis 49, you'll see this. Jacob is about to die. He's now been reunited with Joseph. All the brothers, family reunion, super excited to be there. But what happens is Jacob gives a really long blessing to Judah. And in this, there are 4 titles, if you will, or illustrations that he says to Judah for the tribe of Judah. One is that he calls him a lion. He calls him a lamb. He calls him king, and he calls him Lord. Those 4 titles are written in this blessing and only to the tribe of Judah. Now, how beautiful of that God is showing us in the first book of the Bible. This is what's coming. There is a king coming. There is a Lord coming. There is a Savior who is going to be a lion and a lamb coming. And we see this in this blessing. So don't miss the thread of Judah. Okay, last thing for the takeaway is most of you are really excited as you get started reading, and use it. Use this excitement to keep going. Use this excitement. And remember that repetition, like make sure that you're doing this the same time, or if you can, the same time every day, the same place every day. Let's make this a ritual, because that repetition and the ritual are going to help you in a couple of weeks when we get to some harder books. So make sure that this excitement is being built on as we head into week 1. And you're doing a great job getting started with this. Super proud of all of you. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Excited to hear from you all. And we'll see you again next week for week 2.